Apologies if we've had a few issues for those of you online, but we're only 5 minutes late, so that's really good. I would like to acknowledge the Larrakia people as the traditional owners of the land that we gathered on today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about ACS and talk to you about how the technology sector has reacted to COVID before I hand over to Rebecca, who's going to talk about the resume writing tips and tricks. I would like to say a big thank you to CDU for having us today, and also to the CDU ITSA for organising this, and everyone for being here. So ACS is the Professional Association for Australia's ICT sector. We have around 45,000 members around Australia, and our vision is for Australia to be a world leader in technology talent. So we do accredit the ICT university courses, and we are the largest community of ICT workers in Australia. Why is ACS important? So ACS releases a lot of data and reports, and we've found that the average trend growth of the technology workforce is increasing by around 5%, which is much faster than any other sector in Australia at an average rate of 1.7%. So what that means is that the technology workforce is growing faster than any other industry. So it's a really good workforce for us all to be in, and it's good for you guys to be graduate into, because hopefully it means that you will get a job more easy than if you were going into another sector. But it is a very competitive industry, so there are lots of people graduating into ICT roles, and they will be your competition for when you go to get a job. And every single year the annual IT enrolments increase, which means once again more competitive for you. There's also lots more people from other industries coming into the ICT sector who you will be competing with for jobs. So that's because of displacement from jobs that are not going to exist in the future. So there are lots of jobs people are doing right now that won't exist, and they will be replaced with technology roles. So these people will also be competing for your jobs. And that means that it's really important for you guys to be competitive when you finish your university studies and when you graduate and when you also start working. It's important that you upskill and reskill and make sure that you're keeping up to date with the latest technology trends and innovations so that you can be competitive for those job roles. And that's what ACS can do for you. We can give you access to the latest insights and data and technologies so that you can make sure that you're competitive when you're going to get a job. But it is good news as well, because demand for technology workers is increasing, and it's predicted that by 2024 there'll be 1 million technology workers in Australia, and that's going to increase by 100,000 by 2024. So it is good news for us as well. I'll talk to you a little bit about the member benefits you can get by being an ACS member. Sorry, my slides have done something funny. That's not my, why has that happened? Can I quickly? That's all right, they've just gone funny, but that's okay, like, I'll just use what I've got. Thanks. Okay, I don't know, can you see it? You can okay. On the screen, okay, so I'll just continue. Look, my slides haven't worked out quite the way I planned, but the benefits that you get by being an ACS member is mainly around professional development. So everything that ACS does is linked back to a measurable professional development outcome. And what that means is that there will be a skill that you will acquire from every ACS event. And lots of our events are in person, so you can come along like we're doing today and be able to have networking opportunities as well, and often we'll have lots of industry and organisations represented at our events, which is a great opportunity for you guys if you're interested. And then we also have lots of online events, so we've got webinars available, and these will cover topics like deep tech topics or professional topics or leaders topics, and you'll learn something from every single one of them. So That's a lot of where you get your professional development from outside of your university courses. We also have a careers platform. So this is relatively new and we're still building it up, but there should be some jobs on there for graduates. So if you're an ACS member, you can access that and have a look for jobs on there. And then we also are looking for student advocates at the moment. So if you are an ACS member and you're interested in becoming an advocate for ACS as a student at the university, come and talk to me. It's a good opportunity for you to put it on your resume and also gain some insight into the professional world of ICT workers and get some networking happening and get some experience. So you will have to be an ACS member for that to happen, and it is something that we're not quite ready to launch just yet. It will be happening in the next few months, but if you're interested, I'd love you to come and have a chat to me. And then if you do want to join ACS, the membership is $72 a year, and you can do it on a monthly payment plan, which works out to $6 a month, and it's tax deductible. So you can go and join now on our website, or you can chat to me and I'll be happy to walk you through that. So I want to talk to you about the tech sector and how it responded in COVID. So you can see from this graph, so the blue line is all industries in Australia. The yellow line is the technology industry, and the green line is the technology sector. So you can see the blue line, all of the lines, the Australian economy took a hit during COVID, but the technology sector recovered from the initial shock of that COVID more quickly than any other sector. So what this means is that technology is a really good industry for us all to be in, and we will all have jobs in the future because it's a future-proof industry. So it is definitely good news for anyone working in technology, and especially after COVID. Now there will be, so ACS also found that ICT vacancies soared during the COVID pandemic. So while other industries, even including health workers and medical professionals, actually decreased in their job vacancies, ICT vacancies still continued to grow. And that's partly because people were moving to working from home, and there was a lot of support required. So it is an in-demand field to be in, which is good news for everyone in this room. So there will always be winners and there will always be challenges, and for the response to COVID for the technology sector, we had anyone who allowed businesses to move to the cloud and to work from home, and IT infrastructure businesses, they saw an increase in demand for work and demand for workers. So they were a winner. Tech professionals who enable those remote ways of working from home, definitely there was an increase in demand for them. And tech professionals who help transform the online customer experience, there was a demand there as well. And those industries are growing, those sectors. Okay, it's on. Cybersecurity expertise was a really in-demand section as well, and that's partly because there was an increase in cyber threats during the COVID period. So if you are in cybersecurity, that's a really good place to be. And there are always challenges. So there were project cuts, for example, from governments and really big companies, and reduced budgets, and some of those IT workers did unfortunately lose their jobs. And then we also had companies like airlines who employ a lot of ICT staff who went into voluntary administration, and all those people lost their jobs too. So I suppose the message that I'm trying to get across from all of this is that you're so lucky to all be in ICT. It was a good choice to go and study ICT because it is going to be a future-proof industry, and I think it's a really fun industry to be in as well. And it's lots of great people, lots of community that you can develop, and I wish you guys all the best in your future careers. Oh, that's a slide that I had that's popped up. Okay, I'll quickly just say the benefits for students in being an ACS member as well. So what ACS actually will be able to help you to do is accelerate your career and give you the tools that you need to advance your career when it does come time for you to enter the workforce. We help you with the skills that you need because employers are looking for particular tech skills, so they might also be soft skills like communication, and ACS can help you to develop these because we have a range of online learning tools available to help you. And we also give you advice and we connect you to a community of your peers and leaders. So, for example, when you come to one of our events, you might be able to bump into the person that's going to employ you one day in the future, and that will really help you if they already know your face and your name. Okay, look, that's going to be it from me. I'm going to hand over to Rebecca, and she's going to talk about resume writing tips. So thanks everyone for listening. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lucia. All right, is this all good to go? Yeah? Yeah, and what do I... And what do I press? Do I just press this one?
Yes, you can press any key.
Okay, cool. All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm Rebecca Preedy. I'm the HR business partner at NEC. I've worked for NEC now for just over a year. So I actually moved, I was originally from Perth. I've lived in Perth my whole life. And then a year ago, I did a big move up here to Darwin. Yeah, so, and a bit about my, I guess, my career and my history. So I studied HR at university and was at the stage probably you are all at now where, you know, I was transitioning into the workplace. I started as a HR administrator and for an oil and gas company, and I worked there for about 3.5 years. In that role, I did a lot of recruitment. Probably 50% of my role, so I'm drawing on a lot of that knowledge when I'm going through this presentation. And yeah, a lot of those roles were, you know, some technical roles. It was a little bit of everything, really. I actually was very fortunate enough to travel to countries like Malaysia and Singapore and do big recruitment drives for, you know, large scale numbers of roles. So I really enjoyed that. So that's what I'm going to really draw on today when I'm talking to you. I've also worked in the mining industry. So oil and gas and mining is really my background, but you know, now I'm fresh into the IT sector and trying to learn and get my head around all the IT, you know, work that's done up here. So yes, oh, just make sure I don't trip over. All right, cool. So landing the job. So what I'm going to talk about today, resume tips. So talk through, you know, how to structure your resume, what to include, what not to include. So that's some of the detail I'm going to go through, and then also cover letters. So talk about why they're important, what to include, and give you some examples of cover letters. And then lastly, just a quick touch on, you know, what preparation to do once you've gotten that call back before you go for your interview. So they're the three main areas. Also, like if you've got any questions throughout, please feel free to jump in and ask me. I'm happy to answer for you. Oh, I've accidentally put I'll click through this, so that's all up there on the screen. Oh, I don't know why that. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit of detail. So this is just to talk through how to structure your CV and where to start. And on the right here, I've just got a little example that we've pulled together, which you can reference. So simple stuff at the beginning. So start with your name, address, phone number, professional email address. And now I've underlined that because I know that some of us still use email addresses that we've had since we were, you know, maybe 10 years younger. And I remember my first email address was like Little Devil or something like that. So, you know, probably not ideal to have a email address that's, you know, similar to that. Keep it professional, just your name. So if you don't have an email address like that at the moment, I would suggest that you create an, ooh, I can hear myself back, that you create a new email address that is professional and working right. So if you are on a visa, you know, I think it's always important just to let just to let them know if you want to. Not essential to include that if you don't want to. That's a question that will always come up in the interview. And then a little summary of yourself. So if, you know, like I did just then, if you were asked, you know, tell me about your background in 2 sentences, you know, what would you provide? So, yeah, including, 2 sentences on who you are and your experience so far. So if you've just graduated, say I've just graduated with this degree, and this is what I'm looking for. So that's just a real brief summary to give them a little snapshot. All right, key competencies and skills. Now, yeah, coming from IT, you know, this is really where you put your technical qualifications and certifications that you've completed, and list them out there, as well as any soft skills. So if you've done any presentations, if you've worked in certain teams, if you've, you know, had a part-time job and needed to complete, you know, certain activities, this is where you will, you know, just step out a few key competencies and skills that you have. And I'm going to reference now what I've written at the bottom here. It's always going to depend in the key competencies and skills where you're applying for. So think about what do these, you know, what does this application, this company that I'm applying for, what do they want to hear? You know, what key competencies and skills are going to interest them? So that's what you should be mindful of when you're, you know, putting those key competencies and skills. It's tailored to the job that you're applying for. All right. So qualifications and education, so that's going into your, you know, your degree, what degree you've completed, and then work history. Now, just a show of hands in the room, how many of you have, you know, worked in a full-time or part-time or casual job? All right, so most of you, yeah. So including your work history here. So, you know, the company name that you, and even if it's not relevant in terms of it's not an IT position, it will be relevant from, you know, you've worked in a team, you know, you've turned up to work on time, you know, you've learnt certain skills that are just from being in a workplace. This also can include things like, you know, internships, work experience. Make sure you include that all, and, you know, the skills and the experience that you have from working at each of those positions. If there was a certain project you've worked on, I would also include that here. So, like, let's just say you put your work history, and then you'd also say, you know, at university, these are some of the, you know, some of the skills and achievements that I've worked through. So it doesn't only have to be work; it can also be, you know, at university as well, so that it really fleshes out your resume. Right. So, and I've written that here. So I've put this down here. So let's just say you've worked at NEC. Give a little company overview. So the person reading your resume might not know, you know, what NEC is all about. So it just makes things easy for them to have a little snapshot of what NEC is. And then what are the responsibilities you had when you worked there or did work experience there? And then what are the achievements? So what have you learned out of working there? What are your takeaways from working at that company? And then I've got personal interests, hobbies, e.g. volunteer work, committee involvement. So I think this is important. Even though some people might think personal interest, why is that relevant to applying for a job? It really shows that you're, you know, especially if you've done some volunteering, it shows your character. And I think that's really important for people to read. ACS membership, you know, is something you should, if you are a member or become a member, that's something that you should also include here, as well as, you know, events that you've been to through ACS. So, you know, that's also important. And any other, like if you're a part of a team or a sport, that also shows, you know, that your commitment, your team mentality, and so they are traits that employers will look at, even though they're not completely, you know, 100% relevant to the role. It builds character, and then they learn a little bit more about you. And it's a good icebreaker as well for when you do get to that interview. Now, does anyone have any questions about that? Yeah, sure.
And the volunteer work should it come under like same section, or should there be different sections for one for volunteering and one for experience?
Up to you. So, do you mean like if you talk about like what your volunteering included? I would put it in different sections. So as I've stepped it out here, that's a suggestion of what the sections would be. So if you had, you know, personal interests and hobbies, and then you had volunteering, you might just want to put a couple of dot points of what that volunteering involved if it's relevant for the role. Yeah. So these headings are a good way to start. Yeah, sure.
So when in instance somebody has no experience in IT sector or is like professional for anything,
Yeah.
even not even part-time, so how would he can just isolate to the IT sector?
Do you mean for the resume? So what to put in the resume if you haven't had no experience? So I would include, you know, certain projects that you've worked on at university. So if there's a project where you thought you did something really well, like you achieved a really high score, that's what I would include. I would detail, you know, that project and the outcome of the project, you know, that you worked in a team, that the results of the project. So that's how I would flesh it out. So talk about, yeah, university, and then hobbies as well. So if you need to, you know, if you're involved in if you're involved in ACS or any sort of groups outside of, even volunteering, you can then just include that. Even, you know, if you're, you know, part of like a soccer team, or, you know, say that you're, you know, committed to the soccer team, you know, you've been committed for this many years, your, you know, work as a part of, you know, you've been part of that team, you show the commitment that you have there. Because what employers, you know, if someone's employing a graduate, they understand that you're not going to have a lot of experience, and what they're wanting to look for is the type of person you are, and want to understand that you are a person that's going to be committed to the workplace, willing to learn. So that's something to really keep in the back of your mind, is how can I, through my CV, share with them that I'm going to be committed to this workplace, that I'm really driven by IT. Another thing that I've had people include in the past is the fact that they like to build computers in their spare time, right? Like, that shows that you're really passionate about IT. So if you've, you know, completed a project at home, just, you know, on your own, or done some coding at home, you know, include that, because that's really, you know, that's really important, and it shows that you're passionate and shows that you have a really big interest for the IT sector. So that's the underlying message. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah. 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 And you know, if you haven't already, you know, been involved with networking or done some, you know, online training, or you know, looked into an internship or some work experience, that's something that I would start to think about now. What's that? Yeah, to a degree. So I wouldn't really include, like, if you've gone for an interview and then you've not been successful for that role, I wouldn't include that. So keep that out of it. Mainly just, yeah, things that you've achieved and things that you're really proud of. Yeah. Sure.
So I worked in accounting and finance, and now I have a career change. I'm going towards IT. So
Yeah.
when I write my work history, will that be relevant? Like, when I'm applying for IT job, like, I'm completely new. Like, will those, like, accounting and finance work experience be relevant for IT jobs? Like, when I apply, should I mention, or should I completely ignore?
Definitely mention it. Definitely. I think it's relevant because it shows that you've worked in a business environment. Yeah, I think it's 100% relevant. Probably just then tailor how much information you share. So maybe, you know, you include that where you've worked and a few achievements. But think of it from a mindset of it doesn't need to, you know, what work experience is going to be relevant for an IT job. So what have you done? You know, even, you know, working with spreadsheets, you know, working in teams. So what things from your past roles are going to be relevant for your future roles? I know that they're completely different industries, but you've still worked in a business environment, and there's going to be things from that business environment which are going to be relevant. Working on projects, liaising with stakeholders within the organisation. So even though it's a different job, you still have skills that you can take from one job to another. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on, and then will.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
There is a question from the external attendee.
Sure.
So he has asked that how many pages would be written in an ideal resume for fresh graduates? Thank you.
All right, I've got that on this slide, so that works perfectly. All right, okay, so keep your resume simple and concise. So don't overcrowd it with a lot of words and information, because as someone reading a resume, sometimes when there's not many dot points, I've written paragraph and paragraph, I look at it and go, oh, this is overwhelming. You have to remember that people reading resumes are going to be reading 30, 40 resumes. So keep it to the point and make it stand out. And if you have paragraph after paragraph and all this different writing and headings, they're going to be overwhelmed by it, and it's going to start things off on a bad note. At the end of the day, your CV is that first impression. So we want to make sure it's simple, easy to read, and lots of writing everywhere, lots of different fonts. Keep it simple. So those three first points really cover that. So keep the resume to 2 to 3 pages would be my suggestion. I know that I've seen in other presentations they say more than that, but I'm thinking that you may not have as much experience, so you're not going to have pages of work history. So don't overcrowd it. 2 to 3 pages maximum, and then a cover letter. Keep date ranges in order. So when you're writing about, work history or previous experience, keep it in order, and the most recent being first. You have to remember that when they're reading through, if they get to a section and go, oh, no, I'm not interested in the person, they're going to move on. So you want to, in your work experience, have the most recent and relevant first. So proofread. One of the biggest things that makes you go, nah, this is not going to work, is when there's lots of spelling and grammar issues. So that is a red flag just from the get-go. It shows you that the person hasn't spent enough time putting the, to make sure it's correct. So you go, I just don't know about this person. I've definitely looked at a resume, gone, oh, there's so many spelling issues. Nah, not even read it. So proofread it 2 or 3 times, and then get someone else to read it and make sure it's, completely correct grammar, and use dot points wherever you can. So don't write paragraphs. You want it to be simple and to the point, so write dot points. Avoid acronyms. Now, I definitely have read resumes where I've gone, I do not understand what they're saying here whatsoever, because there's so many acronyms. Even though you have a technical background, sometimes the first person reading your resume doesn't have as much of a technical background. So if you're going to have acronyms, say what the word is and then put the acronym in brackets at the end, and then refer back to the acronym through the resume. And use keywords that will be picked up in the search. So if you're applying for a certain role that's asked, when you're reading the job description of what they're looking for, put those words into your CV. So let's say you're on Seek, you find a job, you open the job ad, read what they're asking for in the job ad, and use some of the terminology that they've used in the job ad in your resume. And make sure you're even answering some of the questions that they ask in the job ad. So if the job ad says, we need someone with this type of experience, and you go, oh, I've had some of that relevant experience, maybe not that many years, but some of it, make sure you highlight it in your CV, because you need to be answering what is in their job ad. All right. I'll move on. All right. Oh. Okay, what not to include. your age, marital status, nationality, religion, and your referee contact details. So the first 4, it's actually illegal now in Australia for someone to ask you these. And it's completely irrelevant for you getting the job. So don't need to include it, don't include it. I say that because there's also sometimes, you know, a level of unconscious bias. So if you remove the ability for someone to have any bias, you know, unconscious bias, which is, you know, when they might favour certain people, then they're not able to do so. So don't give them that opportunity and remove that. They don't need to know. And I wouldn't include a photo either, because that answers some of those questions, and you know, they don't need to see a photo to know if you're qualified for the role. It's not about what you look like. And referee contact details. Now, you don't want to give out your referee contact details in advance because, one, they might just pick up the phone and call those referees. That's giving them now the option to contact your referees right then and there. You want to be prepared for when they're contacting your referees. You want to call your referees in advance and be like, hey, FYI, I've applied for this role. Explain the role you've applied for so they focus on those things. So you want to be in a position where they have to request the referee details. It also helps you to know that you're progressing. So, you know, if they're contacting your referee details, that means that you're progressing in the interview stage. And if you have already given them that information, then you know, they don't need to tell you that, and you don't know how you're progressing. So important, yeah, don't include it. Under the section that refers to referees, just say available on request. Yeah. Okay. Oh, there's photo. Sure, yep.
These days, the resumes are picked up and screened online, so what will be the technique?
Oh, yeah, so that's what I'm referring to when I said the job ads, so picking up the terminology that's used in the job ads, because they will screen for words that they've used in the job ad. So that's what I'm linking to there, is those words will be picked up in the searches. So if the job ad's mentioning, you know, the certain requirements, they're the things they're going to put in the searches. So, you know, grab those out. I can't say exactly what they would be, but when you're looking at the job ad and if it says, you know, we need this much experience in this, let's say it's networking, for instance, then put, you know, networking in your resume if you have that relevant experience. So it's just making sure that you use the same language in the job ad, because that's what they're going to do searches on, especially in the section of the job ad that says, you know, experience required. Yeah. Once again, nope. Yep, okay. All right, so cover letters. How many people at the moment have a cover letter for their resume or their CV? Oh, okay, not many. Now, cover letters, I know some people, for me, I've gone, oh, they're such a pain in the past, but they're so important. A lot of recruiters will only read cover letters as a first start, because that really, cover letters are that first impression before you even get to reading the CV. So it gives them that snapshot into who you are and why you're applying for the job. It really gives them a couple of answers to the interview questions before they even interview you. So it's so important that you have cover letters when you're applying for a job. So I've just put up here, what is a cover letter? So a cover letter comes with your resume when you're applying for a role, and it's often the first point of contact you make with your potential employer. All right, and what you should be doing in that cover letter is selling yourself and explaining why you're applying for the role and why you would be the best person for the role. So you really should be answering those questions on your cover letter, and that's why you need to do a cover letter every time you apply for a role, and not use the same cover letter you used last time, but use a new cover letter. You know, actually reply to the person directly. So, you know, if it says that this recruiter's name, write the recruiter's name, dear so-and-so, and then say, I'm applying for this role at, you know, this company, and explain what the role is and why you're interested in that role specifically. So it should be really personalised. The more personalised it is, the more that the person that's going to read that is going to go, okay, this person's done their research. They specifically want to work for us, and this is why. So it gives them that sense of, okay, this person has a real passion for working for our company. So what to include? So introduce yourself. Say who you are. Similar to that summary you write in the CV, you can expand on that in the cover letter. Personalise your introduction in a way that aligns with the company that you're applying for. When I touch on later the how to prepare for an interview, I say make sure you do your research. Now you should be doing your research even before you apply for the company, and then talking about why you want to apply for that company, and draw on things that you've read on their website. Things that you found by looking on certain their CEO's LinkedIn. So you should be doing your research and then putting some of that information into your cover letter to show that you know about this company and you want to work for this specific company, and this is why. Summarise your relatable and relevant experience and skills. So again, same as the CV, look at the job ad, see what they're asking for, and then answer that and why you fulfill that in your cover letter. Explain why you're applying for this position, so why it interests you. So, maybe it's that, this is the career that you're wanting to head into, and what your future and your career progression looks like, and this role fits that and why. And highlight the reasons you'd be an asset to the organisation. This is your opportunity to sell yourself. All right. Okay, I went too far. And I'm really just reinforcing it here. So demonstrate your experience and tell them how you fit their position. Think about the most important things you've done in your career so far, and even just your life so far, and use these experiences to your advantage in your cover letter. So as to your question before around, okay, what if you haven't worked before? All right, talk about a project that you've worked on. Talk about, a passion that you have for IT and how that filters into your personal life. Whether you build computers, you research things on your weekends. Talk about where your interest comes from, and talk about something that you're proud of. So yeah, relating it to the job, but also just a project that you've completed, anything that gives them that spark and that highlight for them to go, oh, this is someone that we might be interested in. And as I said before, make sure you customise each cover letter to the job that you're applying for. 100% essential. Yes?
How long should a cover letter be?
It should be less than a page. So no longer than a page. I've actually got a little, I've grabbed it off Seek, a cover letter which is publicly available on Seek, and just to show you, because I thought that'll give you an idea. I know it's a lot of information, you won't take it all in now, but we can, I have the link at the end of the presentation that takes you back to this page. So this is, the reason I'm showing it is to show the length. So that's as long as it should be. And it's a letter, directed to that company. See, I wish to apply for this position as an intern on this day and this date. I believe I'd enjoy the challenge. The next paragraph is the qualifications. I'm completing my, Bachelor of Engineering and Information Technology. And this person doesn't have any work experience. So they're talking about, on campus, they're a part of a society, and they show leadership in that group that they're a part of. Teamwork, problem solving, and a couple of things that they've done within that group. So even though they don't have work experience, it shows that they lead a computer society at the university, and some of the things that the skills they've learned through that experience. And then it says, please find attached resume. Another thing you could include is just, you can reference something just briefly in your cover letter, and you can say, to read more about this, please see attached my CV. So it draws them in to reading your CV. All right. Okay, second last slide, and I just wanted to touch on this quickly because I know it's all about CVs, but this is, let's say you've got that call back, you're going for the interview, what to do before you go for that interview. So, make sure you look professional. Research the company and people that work at the company, and I mean not just look at their website once, really have a good read and pick up things that really interest you and then bring them up in your interview. So Google interview technical questions and answer those questions and have them prepared. Make sure you know the address and how long it will take you to get there. Doesn't hurt to actually do a practice run, because you never know. Google Maps might say it takes 5 minutes, but in traffic at that time it takes a lot longer. And being late is just, no go. You don't want to be late for an interview. It shows that, you're not going to meet those time management requirements. Arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. And ask appropriate questions at the end. So ask questions that show that you have knowledge about the company, and you should be asking questions back to them, because you want to know that if this is a company you want to work for as well. It's not all about them, acquiring someone to work for them. You also want to know, I want to make sure this is a company I want to work for. All right. And then,
I have a question.
Sure.
So what is, you said that dress professionally.
Yes.
What does it mean? Because a lot of interactions.
Yeah, sure. Now, good question. I think the more professional you can dress, the better. So I would say, closed-in shoes, black pants, collared shirt, or nice dress, skirt, and nice, professional top, something like this that's quite high cut. It would be. You have to dress for the job that you want to get. So you don't want to be dressing, in thongs, some shorts, even like denim ripped pants. No jeans. Be as professional as you can get. There's no such thing as being overdressed for an interview, in my opinion. So unless you're wearing a ball gown or something like that, but no one's going to do that. So, something like this, I think, or a collared shirt for males or females. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. Yeah. All right. So create a profile and connect. So another thing I wanted to lastly mention is make sure you have a LinkedIn profile. That is one thing that a lot of recruiters go and search. And, set out your LinkedIn profile like your CV. So include all that information that you have in your CV in your LinkedIn profile. Because, and a bit more, and connect with, organisations that you inspire to work for. It's a great start. It exposes you to what those organisations are doing. Even follow the CEO of those organisations to see the direction those companies are going. It shows drive, and it shows that you're really committed to working for those companies if you've connected to certain people in that organisation. Yeah, I think LinkedIn is where a lot of recruiters go. And just to also verify your information that you've put on your CV. So if you then include that information from your CV and all your certifications on your LinkedIn profile, that's perfect. And create a Seek profile as well. So a lot of companies now do like headhunt, do searches, not just for people that have applied for the position, but also for people that just have a Seek profile. So just like a LinkedIn profile, make sure you have set up a Seek profile with, your login details and your, accessible CV. And then, I've just put some further support here. So Seek has a lot of information, so does Hays. I reference some of that information that they have in this presentation. So, I would, if you want some further information, that's another place to have a look. All right. I think I've gone over time. Is there any questions? So that's really the end of my presentation. Any more questions? Is there any questions online? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I would like to ask, like, the entrance for the student who just finished the first year can apply for internship, because I believe that getting the internship earlier gonna be maybe the good advantage for the person who get the job later on.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I try to find the answer like how we can get the internship or will they apply for the internship if
Yeah.
we're not graduate.
Yeah.
So how we can do it like.
Yeah, I would definitely, you know, reach out to certain organisations that you're interested in, and let them know, you know, ask them if they have an internship program. Even if they don't, if you're willing to, just do, you know, unpaid, you know, work experience there. So, or paid, whatever that company offers. But getting that work experience and then having that ability to add that to your CV is ideal. So, yeah, I would start as early as you can, and start reaching out to those companies. You know, send them emails or, you know, go onto their websites and find out their details, and link in with them. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. That's all right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
We actually ask the selection criteria and any of the selection criteria.
Yeah, so do you mean like when you're applying for the role, especially through Seek, a lot of companies have selection criteria, so they'll ask you maybe like 2 or 3 questions before you apply, and then that selection criteria will determine, you know, whether you'll progress or not. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's like Australian, you know, you need to be an Australian citizen to apply for certain roles, so they may ask you that as part of the selection criteria, and if you're not an Australian citizen, then you won't be able to progress because they're not able to take on people on visas. But yeah, they would be the main ones. But normally now, the initial selection criteria would be, yeah, asked through the application process. Yeah.
Rebecca, there's a question from one of the Anish.
Yep.
He has asked that how can you explain about can you please explain about what spacing on the resume? So maybe I think he wants to say how much the spacing should be.
I'm not sure. I think 1.5 is normally like a good way to start if that's what that person's referring to. But I definitely wouldn't have the spacing really close so that you're trying to cram everything on. You want it to be, you know, spread out and, you know, easy to catch the eye and not too overwhelming for the person reading it. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca.
That was such a great presentation. Would everyone please thank Rebecca again? And that's it. We're finished. So thanks everyone for coming. And I think we have some lunch after this. So Cherry, did you want to say anything?
Thank you very much, Lucia and Rebecca. We really appreciate you coming in and then sharing with us the students' experiences especially this is very important. A lot of students try to find the jobs, and we really want to emphasize to them to find a job that is relevant to IT, not just any jobs. I mean, that's the priority. Of course, if you can't, then you just look for any other things. And then, so we would like to give a big hand to ACS and Rebecca. And if anyone who is already ACS member, like student member, if you could also identify with us at the attendance, that would be great so that we can also collect the CPD credits there. And also the same thing with those online, if you can identify yourself that you are already ACS member, so we can award that CPD point to you. Yeah, okay. We will be having pizza, so if you hang on here, our volunteers, our very nice IT Student Association. We've got the team here, Bhavna and Sachin and Piyush, Dishita. Thank you very much, guys, for helping out. Yes.
Yes, just go to the ACS website. And there'll be a join now button. That's the best. Oh, yes, thank you. If you would like to become an ACS member, please just go to the ACS website and there'll be a join now link, and that will be the best way for you to become a member. Thank you.
We ask students, how many of them have considered becoming ACS members?
Sure. So we have our ACS branch chair here, Damien. Thanks for coming today, Damien. We'd like to know how many people have considered becoming ACS members. A couple of people, yeah, great. $6 a month, and I would be happy to work with you to make sure you get the value that you need from it as well. So, thanks.